Hey, what's up to everybody out there? Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable Talk. I am your host, C Money. And in today's episode, I am going to be talking about a topic. If you're here in South Florida, you probably seen it on the news. If you are from other cities that is going through it, because there's other cities that's going through it, we're going to talk about it. Today, we're talking about electric buses and technology failure. If you're in here in the South Florida, you know, and they did a report on it on WPOG Channel 10 News. Check it out on YouTube. Look up electric buses Miami Dade, where about 3 years ago, Miami Dade Transit, partnered with a company called Protora, which is an electric bus company, and they purchased a fleet of electric buses, which is roughly about 40, from what the report said, they over 40 buses, probably more electric buses to modernize their fleet. It was the same thing with Broward County Transit as well. Broward County Transit purchased electric buses as well. And the purpose around it is to upgrade technology because right now Teslas, and they have a lot of electric cars out here. People, electric cars are the future. So to get with the future, public transportation, and it's not just Miami-Dade, it is not just Broward County. There's also several other cities as well that was also mentioned where they have purchased electric buses from the company. And the company is supposed to be a well-known electric bus company. And Miami-Dade spent millions and millions of dollars to do. And from what the Post said, that they was going to eventually turn their whole fleet of buses into electric buses. And even though electric buses cost a little bit more than regular buses, from what the report said, they are, you know, modernizing technology and the way that transportation moves, because, it costs more to repair than would be with, diesel powered buses. Now, the reason why I'm doing this episode, because when I saw the post and when I saw it through social media, and I was like, because down here in South Florida, the buses are being parked at the Homestead Air Reserve Base, Homestead Air Force Reserve Base in Homestead. And I was thinking about doing a video about it, but I'm like, that's at the Air Force Reserve Base. I can't really go there because it's at a Air Force Base, so I can't do it. Now, if it was parked at the Air Force Base Park, I could do it because there is a park down south, which I'll probably do a video on down the line. There's an Air Force Reserve Base Park, where people can go to and stuff like that. But it was at the actual Homestead Air Force Reserve Base, and there are like over, I think it was 42 buses that is parked there. And then in Broward, they say there is a little area off of Highway US 27 where their electric buses are parked at, and that came to where it became a very promising issue. And what I'm saying about this, and this is what this episode is about, a lot of y'all are all for technology, and a lot of people are for technology, but you realize now technology, this is what I mean by technology is failing, because Proterra, the company, that being filed for bankruptcy in 2023, and now the company is bankrupt and the company is closed and went out of business. So now it is hard for any bus company, because they did not only gave buses to Miami-Dade and Broward County. There was other cities and other states that also purchase electric buses. Now, electric buses is supposed to be the new thing of the new technology of public transportation, because it's supposed to, zero emissions and all of this stuff. It's supposed to be a reliable source for transportation bus companies. And Miami-Dade is one of the few transportation companies that wanted to latch on to new technology, because they even said that they wanted the future of transportation. But you realize, and I always say, and I say this on one of the posts, I say, a lot of people feel like this is the way to go for technology. Y'all think having electric cars is going to save y'all. Hey, yeah, it's going to save and help on gas and all that stuff. But you realize a lot of this stuff going to cost more when you're doing it. That's like, you know, using stuff that's electric, and when it versus gas, electric lawnmowers or electric, motorcycles and things like that. We have electric bikes and stuff like that, which is good, a thing. But when it breaks down, a lot of this stuff costs a little bit more to fix than it will. Cause like when your electric car, breaks down, they don't. You just can't take it to any car dealership and say, "Hey, fix my car," because a lot of these car dealerships don't deal with electric cars. They still work on regular, you can't go to a garage and say, "Hey, my electric car broke down. Can you fix it?" They're probably gonna say, "No, we don't fix electric cars." So you have to go to an actual company that fix electric cars, or like with Tesla, I believe you have to go to the Tesla dealership to actually get your car. And then it is hard to get your cars fixed because you may have to pay a little bit more to get your cars fixed. They did an episode about it on the neighborhood, and I was just watching the episode the other day. The Neighborhood, which is one of my favorite TV shows, with stars the great Cedric the Entertainer and Tashina Arnold, where his son, says that they don't have electric car garages or companies. You have to go to the actual dealership to get your electric car fixed, and they charge you an arm and a leg because they're the only ones that do it. And that's why I say it's harder for people to actually get their electric cars fixed. Now, I'm quite sure there are companies that have, that deal with, that say, hey, you can come and get your electric car fixed here and stuff like that. But I know most people, they have to go to the dealership because, especially in the areas that you're in, you probably don't have a dealer or a company that fix electric cars in your areas, and stuff like that. So with that, I look at it as if, it was the same thing with Miami-Dade Transit and all these other companies. They was relying on Pretoria to, buy the parts and stuff to keep the buses, running and stuff like that. And they say that the electric buses, they constantly kept breaking down and things like that. And I was like, and then a lot of people was like, yeah, this is our taxpayer dollars going down the drain. I say, yeah. I was all for electric buses because I was like, yeah, electric buses are the future. I wasn't expecting the whole fleet of transit buses to be electric. I was just thinking that you would probably like 50 or 60 electric buses, and you put them in different areas and things like that. But I look at it as if y'all have to do your research before you start purchasing this stuff. And that's the thing what I said about these government officials. They don't think before they act. You spent millions and millions of dollars on these electric buses, and now they're sitting idle. Broward County said that they're looking and they're waiting on the federal government, because most of the money that came to buy these electric buses came from federal government money and grants and federal government money to buy these electric buses. So they say they're waiting on the federal government to do next, because they want to get rid of those electric buses. They don't want the electric buses no more. Miami-Dade, the mayor, Daniela Levine Carver, she said she's still all for electric buses, and they want to find a solution for the electric buses. But Broward say, no, no, no. We're going to get rid of these buses. Either we're going to sell them or sell the parts or whatever. We're getting rid of these buses. We don't want these buses no more. Miami-Dade, they still want them, and they still want a solution. So my thing is, you have to find a solution. But before you... And just like when you go in the store, when you be looking for the best fruit and you be checking each fruit, and like how you go to the eggs and you open up the carton of eggs to make sure that none of them is cracked. You don't just pick the eggs and then take them home, because you never know. You might find a carton that's cracked, or egg that's cracked in there. And like me, I used to go in there when I pick up eggs. I used to go look in the eggs, and then I'll pick up each egg to make sure that the bottom part is not cracked, because the top part may not be cracked, but the bottom part may be cracked. And it's the same thing with government. You got to make sure. First of all, you got to test out these things. You got to make sure that these and I wonder, how did the company go bankrupt? A lot of these transportation companies, because it's like maybe 10 bus companies throughout the United States that did use Proterra, And you mean to tell me with all the millions and millions of dollars they was pouring into this company to make these buses, you mean to tell me y'all went bankrupt? I know that the cost of maintenance is high now, especially with electric vehicles and electric buses and stuff like that, because I know the cost of living, the cost of maintenance is high as hell. Back then, you could probably get a car part for $100. Now it costs you $300-$400 for a car part, and that's not even including the maintenance. You got to pay for the part, got to pay for it to get shipped from wherever it's at. If it's not here in South Florida, because most companies they tell you, oh, this is a foreign car, so we got to get it shipped from China or some other country, and we got to get it shipped here to the United States. But so you got to pay for the shipping, you got to pay for the part. First of all, you got to pay for the part, which is probably like $300-$400. Then you got to pay for shipping, which is probably another $200-$300, depending on where it's coming from. Then you got to pay for the maintenance and things like that. So you're looking at $1,000+ in whatever you got going on. So I understand that, but my thing is there are billions of dollars from these different companies, and they said it. Go look it up. They tell you how much money they was pouring in, $4 or $5 billion, and they say Broward County, like those buses was like a $1 million a piece or whatever. And I'm like, dude, y'all was spending all this money on this stuff and not realizing that, hey, you try to modernize your transportation fleet, but at the same time, you got to realize what is this going to do in the long run. Not every business is guaranteed. You think Winn-Dixie's gonna be here forever? You think Publix gonna be here forever? You think Tesla's is the new future? There's gonna be another within 10, 20, 30 years from now. There's gonna be another company that's gonna outbeat Tesla in the car industry, and you're gonna think that because now Tesla is the deal. Everybody's buying Teslas. Everybody's walking around with Tesla. You gotta realize in 20, 30 years there's gonna be a new set of cars that's gonna come out that's even gonna be better than Tesla. It's the same thing with iPhones. Look how many iPhones them came out, and every year they come out with a better iPhone that's supposed to have more storage and more durability every year. And you think that, oh yeah, these electric buses is gonna be the future, because eventually they're gonna have electric trains that run by, they don't run by gas and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about those, like the Metro Rail and stuff, because they run by electric. I'm talking about, how like Tri-Rail and, Amtrak and Brightline. A lot of these trains, they're going to be like, oh, no, they run by this and they run by that. They're going to start, well, we're going to charge them up and they can run wild. We don't need, all of this stuff. We don't need gas and fuel and all this to run. And I look at it as if, you got to look at zero emissions and all that. You got to look at the things. Every business does not last long. You see what recently happened with a lot of these businesses. A lot of these businesses went out of business because, it's hard. And and they even said it with the Petoro. And I said and let me go back to what I was looking. I was reading it on Google. And I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read it to you. And it says, Petoro was a major U.S.-based manufacturer of electric transit buses and battery systems that filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in August of 2023. While it was a leader of zero-emission transit, financial pressure from manufacturing costs, supply chain issues, and COVID-19 led to its restructuring and the sales of its bus units, with its battery division purchased by Volvo. And despite high customer demand, the company struggled with profitability due to high custom manufacturing costs for each transit agency and supply chain limitations. Petoro buses are still used in major cities, i.e. Miami-Dade Transit. And basically what they're saying is the high cost. COVID shut down a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses went down because of COVID, because when COVID came and businesses said, hey, we got to shut down. The government said, you can't operate your business. You don't want nobody to get sick. So businesses are shut down. Remember I said Sweet Tomatoes and a lot of these, businesses, they got shut down because when COVID hit and they was out of work for the whole year of 2020, there was a lot of businesses that did not open up until 2021 or couldn't open up until 2021. And because that they couldn't make money, they couldn't keep their businesses open. I remember when my job, when they closed, they had to let go everybody by July and August of that year. My company told me while I worked at, they said, at the end of July, August 1st, you're terminated from the job. And then when I went back, they said everybody had to get fired, and that's because they had to pay money to keep everybody that was working on their payroll. Even though you wasn't working, to have you on their payroll, they had to keep paying, to have you on their payroll. They're not paying you, but they're paying to have you on their payroll. And I didn't know that until, something that was something new. If y'all knew about that, let me know, comment at the bottom of this page. And I looked at it and I said, wow, I didn't even know that. And then that's what they was like, oh, if we got rid of everybody, you're furloughed, and that means, you're not on their payroll, so they don't hire any pay, whatever. So I look at it as if I understand that, but at the same time, y'all running around here, and I'm not saying y'all is the people, I'm saying in general, everybody thinks that technology is the best way. You see now, a lot of these bus companies now are facing, a financial crisis because they spent millions and millions of dollars. Now they probably gonna have to to keep the cost. They probably gonna have to find a way, because there was already rumors about Miami-Dade Transit, raising the cost of their bus fare, because their bus fare now is $225. Now they're thinking about raising the cost to maybe $275, and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? Because a lot of the money, and this is government, and I seen things like this going down, and I say, it's just the government going around doing things. There was just a post, and everybody was upset. This past weekend, we had the UFC fighting here in Miami, and President Donald Trump was visiting, and he was at the Kaseya Center. And I told them, I say, Trump has been to the Kaseya Center for the past couple of years because he is the first president to step into the Kaseya Center, which is the arena, the home arena of the Miami Heat. And he's the first president to ever step foot in the arena as a president. No other president has stepped into that arena, but only Trump. And a lot of people are upset because they're like, we're at war, and we're at war with Iran, and he's running around here playing golf and going to UFC fights and stuff, and while they out here trying to find a deal. And I say, yeah, because this is the government. The government out here doing crazy stuff, just like, y'all purchased all of these electric buses, but at the same time, you got to realize, what is it going to do in the long run? Yeah, some of these people, like myself, I love the electric buses. I like the electric buses. Now, what's going down? Now you have it to the electric buses are breaking down and stuff like that. And you have to look at these things before you purchase it. I always look at certain things, like, I always, when I look for products, I look for certain things in the product. If it's $20, is it reliable at $20? If it's $50, is it reliable at $50? I buy things that, not only looking at the price, because the price means everything. If you buying a toothbrush that's $2, it's just a regular toothbrush. But if you buy a toothbrush at $7, you might get the best results at $7 that you is at $2. And it's the same thing with appliances. You're buying a TV, a smart TV for $100, where there's another smart TV for $200. Well, you're looking at price and durability and things like that. And it's the same thing with these electric buses. Yeah, y'all bought these electric buses and y'all probably saw them and saw the inside and said, "Ooh, this is nice. Let's get them." But at the same time, in the long run, what is going down? And a lot of these companies, I know they didn't think that this bus company the electric bus company was going to go out of business, but you realize nothing lasts forever. Look how many Burger Kings and McDonald's and KFC's and Taco Bell's and Pizza Hut are closing down, their doors, because they just closed down. And remember, I just did an episode the other day talking about the closing down of a Denny's that's been open for 55 years, and they just closed it down to build the condominiums and all that. And I'm like, you realize now that you have these buses sitting there idle at a remote place for what? What you're going to do now? Your option is you need to find another bus company that can come out and fix these things, or you need to find a way of what y'all going to do with these electric buses, because they can't sit there at a yard, and these buses ain't been in service no more than 3 years. I seen a post, if you go to the Gold Coast Railroad Museum, that is right there near the Zoo Miami, and I'm going to do a video about it, because I'm going to go one day and I'm going to do a video about it. They do have an old Metro Mover car that was the first Metro Mover cars that came out in the 80s and the 90s. They have an old Metro Mover car, and they have several buses from the early 2000s and mid 2000s that they have out there. And I will be doing an episode at it because they do have some bus fleets out there. And if you go into certain areas on the Metro Rail going north, you will see there is a fleet of buses in a little field. I forgot what station is after. I think it's somewhere near going to Okeechobee Station. I'm not for sure, but I have to check it. And I look at, but those are like regular old buses that, they done been out for like 10, 20 years and stuff. But you have electric buses, they ain't even reached a 5 year window span, because they tell you that a lifespan of a bus should be 10 years. And after 10 years, the bus supposed to be retired. That's what I was told. So I look at it and say, okay, but they ain't even reached 5 years with the electric buses. So you mean to tell me these buses and the company went? So my thing is, because here's what I think about these electric buses, and here's what I think about technology. When you purchase technology, you have to realize whatever you purchasing these technologies from, you have to realize, is this company reliable? And even if they are or not reliable, you have to have a backup source, because even if you purchase that's just like purchasing a computer from a computer company. You have to realize, if this computer company go down, do I have another place where I can get this computer fixed? Just like with Teslas. I buy a Tesla from the Tesla company. I can always go to Tesla, but there is another shop that can fix my Tesla, that if I can't get the Tesla, or there is another place I can go and get this thing fixed. And that's what I say a lot of these companies and government need to realize. You have to always have a backup plan when you do stuff. And government never has a backup plan. You want to go to war with Iran, you want to go do this, or you want to go do that, but you never have a backup plan to this thing, and I look at it as if, yeah, you bought these electric buses. Yeah, this company is the buses you bought them from. But let's have a backup plan. Let's open up our own electric shop here, and we can see if we can buy parts from different companies to fix these buses if this company goes out of service. I know they are the ones that supply the company. That's just like with and I don't know if I did a video about this a while back, and I'm going to do a video of it. Remember at Zoo Miami, I told you about the monorail closing down because the company that did the parts for the monorail at Zoo Miami, they closed, and it will be hard to get the parts to service the monorail, so they had to close the monorail. I'm quite sure eventually they're going to reopen up the monorail back up, but it's probably going to be within a long time that they do it. I don't think they close the monorail for good. And I look at it as if, because you don't do your research, and yeah, maybe there are things that that can't be replaceable and stuff like that, but at the same time, I look at it as if you are a government, you are a city, a county, you need to know that this is what you need to be thinking about. Have a backup plan when it comes to certain things. Yes, electric buses are the technology of the future. And what was said was they wanted to change their whole fleet into electric buses. And I say, nah, that's gonna be impossible to do, because you can't change your whole bus fleet into electric buses, because, they even say that electric buses cost more to fix than it would a diesel bus, because a diesel bus don't cost that much to fix, and you have maintenance guys that fix diesel buses. Here you have electric buses. You got to realize this is ridiculous. That the fact that they haven't even been gone 3 years. Now, if you live in a city that has electric buses, let me know if y'all electric buses are still running or they're on idle, because there has been several cities where electric buses are at. I'm going to probably be looking them up to see where they at, because they did say the names, but not too many people are getting on with this, because a lot of these cities like Atlanta and a lot of these others, and they looking like, man, we're not going to be purchasing on those electric buses. Number one, that's too much money to be spending on electric buses right now. Atlanta, which is MARTA Transit, I love them, they are just not upgrading to new MARTA trains for their train system. And I'm like, I seen the trains, and I'm like, I seen them online. I'm like, oh yeah, they look nice. The next time I go to Atlanta, I want to ride one, and stuff like that. But they is not finna get up here and say that. Now a lot of these cities, they're gonna be looking at this, and they're gonna be like, Miami-Dade purchased over millions and millions of dollars of buses, and now the company went out of the. Now they're gonna be looking like, I thought about getting electric buses for our county, but I don't even know if I want electric buses no more, because Miami-Dade and Broward done went out of work. Their electric buses, don't work, and they sit and parked, and they not using them, and they only been in service for a couple of years. I rode the electric bus in Miami-Dade County. I've also rode the electric bus in Broward. Broward was the first one to get electric buses. Miami came afterwards with their electric buses, and I felt like, and if you look up Broward County Transit and you look at their bus schedules, there's a picture of an electric bus on there. But even if you pick up an electric bus, if you pick up a schedule from one of the centers or whatever, they have the paper schedule, it has a picture of an electric bus on the cover of the schedule. And even if you go online and look up the schedule, they have a picture of an electric bus. Now they have to turn around and take the electric bus off, because now you're misleading people, because you don't have electric buses no more. And I've been wondering, I haven't been seeing the electric buses in a while, because in Broward County they used to use them like on one route. They used to have them on they're like every now and then they'll put them on different routes, but then they started using them on one route, because Broward County even have electric express buses. You know, those motor coaches they use for the 95 Express and the 595 Express. They even had electric motor coaches, and I was like, oh, y'all finna make thing. But I don't think that Greyhound and them is going to be doing that, because electric buses, they have to be, charged up. And by the time you get to a certain, like if you going from like Miami to Orlando, you could probably use an electric bus and sit it at the station and have it charged up, But if you going from like here to New York and you're not, you only making certain stops for like 5 minutes, yeah, you can't have an electric bus, because depending on how long that electric bus lasts, you got to charge that bus. But yeah, you're going to make it to like, they're going to start using electric buses and inner city transportation, Greyhound, Flexbus, Red Coach, Megabus, and all this stuff. So I'm like, let me know what y'all think about this. Do you really like electric buses? I think electric buses are nice, but the thing about it is, you have to do your research when you buying this stuff. You have to do your research when you purchasing things, because when I saw that post about the electric buses, I said, oh, the company went out of business. And I was like, how? And I thought to myself, I said, the company was making millions and millions of dollars off of these buses. But I say, even though they was making millions, because Miami, you did over like millions and millions of dollars into these buses and they said Broward did the same thing, because Broward in Miami has a half penny sales tax, meaning that the half a penny, because Miami used to be 6.5 in sales tax. Now Miami is 7% sales tax, and I think that's the same way with Broward. And that half a penny, that 0.5 tax, goes to transportation. That's why, and the same thing with Broward. Broward voted on it one time, like a couple of years ago, and people vote against it. And then they did another vote a few years ago, and the people passed the sales tax, meaning that half of one penny goes to transportation, and it helps with monetizing transportation. And one of the transportation things is monetizing the fleet buses by making them electric. And they spent millions and millions of dollars, and not only with their money, but with government money, they spent millions and millions of dollars to monetize it by making some of their fleet buses electric. And at the same time, it failed because the company went bankrupt. See, now they are left in the dark on what to do with the buses, because they didn't do their research or had a backup plan. Because you already know, you're supposed to have a backup plan when you purchase anything. I don't care if you worked in the White House, you work for the government, the FBI, the city, the county, wherever you work for, you're supposed to have a backup plan. So now let me know what y'all think about this. Do you think that this was a right move for them to purchase electric buses? And what do you think they should do? Because Broward County say they're going to get rid of them buses. They don't want them no more. They're going to get rid of them. Miami has over 40-something buses. I think Broward has over 20-something buses that are electric. And because, Miami is a bigger city than Broward, and they have a larger, bus service or whatever. But my thing is, what do you think about that? What do you think about electric buses and technology? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? My opinion, I think certain technology needs to be enhanced to where it makes it better for us. Yeah, I believe they need a few, electric buses out there, to help with stuff like that. But my thing is, you also need to do your research when you doing technology, because not all technology is good. You buying these cars, you buying these buses, you buying these equipments, and you buying these, newer technologies. You have to realize at what cost. Because a lot of this stuff you paying thousands of dollars for, and they, just like I was saying about shoes, You buying these Jordans and these Nikes and stuff for $300, and they are made with slightly good material. They may be made with material that's better than the ones that you buy in that than the shoes you buy in that Payless. But let me, what it is. Let me know what y'all think about this. Comment at the bottom of this page. Email me roundtable305 at yahoo.com, because we're probably going to do a follow-up on this episode about electric buses, because I want to know what's going to go down with this electric buses and what they're going to do. Broward said they're getting rid of the electric buses. They're waiting on the federal government so they can get rid of these electric buses. Miami said they're trying to find a solution because they have a lot of these electric buses and they want to modernize their fleet by using electric buses. So they're trying to find a solution on what they're going to do, because the county commissioners are trying to find or needs an answer on what's going down with these electric buses, because they're left in the dark. And I say, yeah, let's find out what we're doing. So let me know what y'all think about the electric buses and the future of technology. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What? Comment, email me. Let me know what y'all think. As always, thank y'all for watching this episode, and thank y'all for watching me. As always, stay safe, stay blessed, stay hydrated. See you in the next episode. Take care.